Lot is a biblical figure mentioned in the Old Testament, mainly in the book of Genesis. He was Abraham's nephew and accompanied Abraham on his journey. When their holdings became too large to manage together, Abraham allowed Lot to choose the land he wanted. Lot chose the region around the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, which were known for their depravity. Eventually, God decided to destroy these cities due to their wickedness. Before the destruction, two angels visited Lot and warned him of the imminent destruction, instructing him to flee with his family. Lot and his daughters escaped, but his wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt as punishment. Already subscribe to the channel and leave your like for YouTube to notify you that a new video has already been released here on the channel. Thank you. Lot and his daughters took refuge in a cave in the mountains. The daughters, fearing that they were the last survivors of humanity, decided to have relations with their father to guarantee the continuity of the race. From this relationship were born the sons Moab and Ammon, who became the ancestors of the Moabites, and accounts about Lot, a biblical figure, are found in the book of Genesis, starting in chapter 11. Lot's story begins with questions surrounding the origin and meaning of his name. Some scholars suggest that it may symbolize the idea of a covering veil, possibly indicating the importance of how we present ourselves to others. According to the Bible, after the death of his father, Lot left Ur of the Chaldees and went to Haran, accompanied by his grandfather Terah, his uncle Abraham, and Sarai. After Terah's death, Abraham left Aram and was followed by Lot to Canaan. During a period of great famine in Canaan, they both went down to Egypt and settled there. However, after being deceived, the Pharaoh of Egypt expelled Abraham and Sarai, leading Lot to return with them to Canaan. During this time, both Abraham and Lot prospered significantly, to the point where their herds grew so much that the region could no longer accommodate them both, resulting in conflicts between their shepherds. The biblical narrative highlights the contrast between Abraham and Lot, mainly due to the crucial choices that each one makes in the face of opportunities and challenges on their journeys. Abraham is portrayed as a man of faith, whose obedience and trust in God's promises guide his decisions, making him a notable example of someone who puts the divine will above his own interests. A notable episode is that of the three mysterious visitors to Mamre. One day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent, under the shade of the oaks of Mamre, when he noticed three men standing in front of him. The intensity of the account suggests that these visitors were of an extraordinary nature, for Abraham quickly prostrated himself in reverence before them, demonstrating remarkable hospitality by inviting them to stay and rest. While Abraham and Sarah welcomed visitors, offering water to wash their feet and food to reinvigorate their strength, they received surprising news. One of the visitors revealed that, within a year, Sarah, despite her advanced age, would have a son. This promise aligns with God's previous guarantee to Abraham, promising numerous descendants, comparable to the stars in the sky. The story of the visit to Mamre not only highlights Abraham's hospitality, but also the intimate and personal nature of the relationship between God and his faithful servant. On the other hand, Lot was increasingly influenced by the temptations of the material world, attracted by the promises of prosperity. Thus, Abraham and Lot decided to separate. Abraham, generously, allowed Lot to first choose the land he wanted to occupy. This decision by Abraham, focused on maintaining peace and avoiding conflicts, demonstrates his spiritual maturity and the appreciation of communion with God above earthly disputes. Lot chose the green plains of the Jordan, close to the Dead Sea and Sodom, seduced by the beauty and fertility of the region, with a materialistic vision. However, this choice reflects Lot's vulnerability to worldly seductions, contrasting with Abraham's spiritual steadfastness. After the separation, Lot settled in Sodom, where he quickly became involved in local affairs, achieving a prominent position. However, the Bible describes the inhabitants of Sodom as extremely wicked, which caused Lot great anguish. The Apostle Peter, in the New Testament, describes how Lot suffered daily when witnessing the wickedness in the city. While Lot was in Sodom, a battle occurred in which kings of Mesopotamia defeated Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zor, plundering all the goods and capturing many inhabitants, including Lot. Upon learning of this, Abraham organized a rescue force that, in a night battle, he defeated the enemy army and recovered Lot and his family's goods. It was in this episode that Abraham met Melchizedek. Despite the war involving Sodom, Lot did not leave the city, and his story continues in the Bible with the visit of angels to Sodom. In the midst of chaos and perversion, the divine presence in the corrupt city highlights God's concern with human evil. This situation echoes the message of Jeremiah 23 verse 24, which emphasizes that God hears the cry resulting from injustice. Divine intervention in human affairs reflects God's commitment to righteousness and his willingness to act in the face of evil. The Lord declares his intention to investigate the sins of Sodom, thereby revealing his righteousness and rejection of wickedness. However, faced with so much disappointment, God decides to destroy the city. Already subscribe to the channel and leave your like for YouTube to notify you that a new video has already been released here on the channel. Thank you. The biblical narrative highlights the depravity of the inhabitants of Sodom, especially evident in the way they treated the Lord's angels. The men of Sodom, in their sinful conduct, desired to have sexual relations with the angels, a behavior that was one of the main reasons for the destruction of the city. During this turmoil, Lot controversially attempted to calm the situation by offering his daughters to the men of the city, reflecting his weakness and the city's harmful effects on him. At this moment, the Bible delves into Abraham's courageous intercession before the Lord, revealing a genuine search for understanding and divine justice. Abraham, aware of the imminent destruction of Sodom, dares to question God about the possibility of sparing the righteous along with the wicked. This bold dialogue resonates with the exhortation of James 5 verse 16, which highlights that the prayer of the righteous is powerful and effective. The narrative continues with the courageous negotiation between Abraham and God, in which Abraham dares to question the possibility of sparing the city for the sake of the righteous, a context that is reflected in Psalm 86 verse 15. But you, Lord, are a compassionate and merciful God, extremely patient and abundant in love and faithfulness. This reflection highlights God's willingness to hear the pleas of his servants and the readiness to act with compassion in the face of fervent intercession. The narrative not only highlights divine compassion, but also highlights the importance of persistence in the search for justice and mercy. When God decided to destroy the cities of the plain, including Sodom and Gomorrah, the Bible reports a remarkable episode. Before the destruction of Sodom, Lot and his family were rescued by two angels sent by the Lord. This deliverance occurred thanks to God's mercy and commitment to the covenant established with Abraham. Faced with the insistence of the inhabitants of Sodom in capturing the angels, they finally afflicted men with blindness. The angels then ordered Lot to remove his entire family from the doomed city. Lot hesitated to leave Sodom, requiring the angels to forcibly lead him out of the city. During the escape, the family was warned not to look back. However, Lot's wife disobeyed this order and was turned into a pillar of salt. The transformation of Lot's wife into salt is a dramatic representation of the consequences of disregarding God's guidance. Lot, although spared from imminent destruction, was not exempt from the moral consequences of his choices. This version maintains the essence and meaning of the original text, with some changes in words and structure. By choosing to settle near Sodom, Lot placed his family in a harmful environment, and the story shows his struggle to preserve moral integrity amid the corruption around him. This battle reflects modern challenges faced by Christians who often find themselves in societies where values contrast with biblical teachings. After leaving Sodom, Lot and his two daughters sought refuge in a small town. However, afraid to remain there and fearing for their lives, they took shelter in a cave in the mountains, revealing a hesitation in completely trusting the divine plan. This attitude contrasts with the unshakable faith of Abraham, who trusted God even in the face of uncertainty and challenges. Already subscribe to the channel and leave your like for YouTube to notify you that a new video has already been released here on the channel. Thank you. Lot's decision to hide in a cave symbolizes the human tendency to isolate oneself in the face of adversity. The cave can be seen not only as a physical shelter, but also as a state of emotional and spiritual seclusion. This raises questions about how traumatic experiences can affect a person's ability to fully engage with life and relationships. It was in this place that a tragic event occurred. Worried about preserving the family lineage and feeling isolated, Lot's daughters, with no prospect of finding husbands, devised a plan. Under the influence of alcohol and driven by a lack of understanding of moral and ethical norms, Lot's daughters made a drastic decision. On consecutive nights, they slept with their father, seeking to ensure offspring. From this incestuous union were born Moab and Ben-Ammi, who became the patriarchs of the nations of Moabites and Ammonites, respectively. These nations would prove to be a constant source of conflict for the Israelites throughout biblical history. The biblical narrative of Lot follows, highlighting his complex and controversial relationship with his daughters after the events in Sodom. However, from this point on, Lot's story loses detail. It is not known for certain whether he managed to rebuild his life, or whether he spent his last days in the cave in the mountains where the incidents with his daughters occurred. The Apostle Peter makes reference to Lot in his second epistle, in chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, where he mentions the episode of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the New Testament, Jesus also mentions Lot in the Gospel of Luke, in an apocalyptic context, recalling the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the salvation of Lot. This account serves as a reminder for the end times, highlighting the importance of readiness and obedience to God. The biblical narrative shows us that Lot had the opportunity to learn from Abraham, his uncle, known as the father of faith. However, unlike Abraham, Lot was guided by his own perceptions and desires rather than by faith. This personal approach resulted in many afflictions and left deep scars on his family. Lot's story is an example of how personal choices can impact not only individual lives, but also future generations. LW serves as an example of the consequences of choices guided more by personal perspectives than by faith and divine direction. Valuable lessons for current Christian life emerge from this account. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah highlights the importance of making ethical choices, even when we face cultural pressures to the contrary. Already subscribe to the channel and leave your like for YouTube to notify you that a new video has already been released here on the channel. Thank you. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, exhorts believers not to conform to the standards of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of the mind. Romans 12 verse 2. This passage highlights the need for modern Christians to remain firm in their faith and moral values, regardless of external influences. I hope Lot's story can inspire us. Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click on one of the two videos that will appear on the screen to continue following. Hugs and stay with God.